Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to this thrilling round of Jeopardy! For Final Jeopardy, we have our contestant, Kevin, from Long Island, with it all on the line for this Final Jeopardy! Question. Kevin, are you ready?
Yeah, feeling good, feeling good. Let's get this road on the show.
Let's do it. Name which activity burns the most calories. A, 30 minutes of cardio. B, 1 hour of strength training. C, sleeping. I don't know about that one, Kev. Or D, this is a trick question. 30 seconds on the clock. Kev, what do you got?
Yeah, that's gonna be A. A, cardio. A, lock it in.
Do it. Do it. Are you sure? You do have 27 seconds left on the clock.
No, lock it in.
Do it. Okay, 30 minutes of cardio. Oh.
You know what? I'm gonna phone a friend.
Better luck next. You're never gonna be on the show again. Get this. No, you're done. Yo, 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 welcome back to yet another week of How to Health. My name is Kevin. I run liftandbalance.com, where we take aim at all things health and do it in a odd, weird, interesting, and highly sarcastic manner. This week, I gotta tell you, I'm just getting this, weird vibe in the air. It's, sort of like... We are talking energy expenditure, and specifically how it plays a role in our modern health woes. And more importantly, like always, going through what we can do to optimize it. Optimize our body's metabolism and run as efficiently as possible. So first, let me let you in on a little secret. We all need energy. It's kind of important for that thing called life. Allowing things like immune activity and cellular function to happen. Things like growth and reproduction.
Take off your clothes.
And like standard physical activity, like I'm doing now, moving my arms all over the place, like a flailing idiot. But that's neither here or there. When it comes down to our modern day health woes, which if you're not aware of, you can check out in this video or in the link below, it is so easy to point blame to eating too much and moving too little, leaving us with this surplus of energy, thus driving obesity. But is that really what's happening? The life history theory proposes that organisms have evolved to adaptively manage the allocation of energetic resources between these competing tasks, resulting in trade-offs that happen throughout the course of life. It's a balance. Kind of sounds like a familiar channel that I sub to. But I mean, isn't this like a little backwards? For example, if Sally burns 2,000 calories a day just as her standard metabolic rate, and then she starts exercising, for simplicity's sake, let's say 500 calories worth of exercise a day, she should then be burning 2,500 calories a day, period. End of story. Case closed, right? Well, let's dig in a little deeper. New research from Baylor University, published in the Journal of Science Advances, challenges the idea that energy expenditure is based off an additive model rather than a constrained model. And I know what you're thinking. What the hell is an additive and what the hell is a constrained model? Well, let's take a second and look into what these two models look like. The conventional way of thinking is the more you exercise, the higher your total energy expenditure will be. Because active energy expenditure goes up, and resting energy expenditure and diet-induced energy expenditure stay the same. This represents an additive energy expenditure model, where the number of calories you burn in a day rises in a linear fashion to the amount of physical activity you do. Back to our example, if Sally's total energy expenditure is 2,000 calories a day, and then she starts doing aerial yoga. If you haven't tried aerial yoga, I suggest you do, which burns 500 calories a day. her new total energy expenditure will be 2,500 calories a day. Simple, right? Okay, now let's go look at the other model, the constrained model. In our same Sally example, when she adds aerial yoga, 500 calories a day, to her 2,000 calorie a day baseline, a constrained model predicts a non-linear rise to total energy expenditure. But instead, it starts to tail off and flatten at a certain point. Oh, that ain't cool. So let's go through some terminology and then we will get into this super cool study that compared total energy expenditure of Amazonian children, Amazonian, with physical active lifestyles and chronic immunological challenges, aka the immune system's consistently tested because they live in a remote part of the world out in the natural elements of the environment, to the more sedentary children living here in the US and over in the UK. I can only imagine the differences. We'll find out in a minute. First, terminology. Energy expenditure terminology. So we have total energy expenditure, TEE. This is the overall number of calories that we burn in a day and is the sum of the following energy expenditure components. First, activity-induced energy expenditure, AEE. This is the amount of calories that you burn through physical activity and exercise. Next, resting energy expenditure, REE, also known as resting metabolic rate. This is all the calories that we burn for all those internal reactions that maintain our body and its functionality at rest. And lastly, diet-induced energy expenditure, DEE. And this is simply the number of calories that we use to digest and process food. Okay, so now that we got that down, TEE, AEE, REE, DEE, he. I'm sorry, I had to do it. Additive, constrained. Let's go to the research and see what they found when they compared these two geographically and environmentally opposite populations. First, the methods. The Shar are an indigenous population of the Ecuador and Peru area, a population that is still very heavily reliant on hunting, fishing, foraging to live. This study worked with an isolated community of about 300 people and followed 44 adolescents ages 5 to 12, collecting data over a 14-day period. While the energetics data from the US and the UK was collected from 20 participants out of Vermont in the USA and 20 participants out of Northern Ireland in the UK. And to measure energy expenditure, researchers use gold standard isotope tracking and respirometry methods. Predictions, anyone? Well, the additive TEE model would predict that the Shar total energy expenditure should be elevated compared to the industrialized population, reflecting a greater need for immune activity, resting energy expenditure, and physical activity, active energy expenditure. But in contrast, the constrained total energy expenditure model predicts that the total expenditure should be similar between populations, the result of those trade-offs that we talked about before between underlying energy expenditure components. What do you think happened? The researchers found that Amazonian children with physically active lifestyle and chronic immunological challenges actually did not burn much more calories than the average sedentary children here in the US and UK. Even though these Shar children were 25% more physically active, with a 20% greater resting energy expenditure, to a large degree reflecting that increase in immune activity, the total number of calories that the Shar children spent every day was nearly indistinguishable from their US and UK counterparts, overall supporting the constrained model of energy expenditure. And these findings, although in kids and although with a very small sample size, suggest that there are other driving factors other than the physical activity that we do or don't do when it comes to this 21st century epidemic of obesity in the Western world. Researchers suggesting that ultimately eating too much, not moving too little, may be at the core to this long-term weight gain. Pretty interesting. And obviously, I think it's worth restating that with a study like this, with such a small sample, there was really no way of proving out a causal effect when it comes to obesity in the Western world. But all that being said, this is some very interesting research that lays some more groundwork to dig into the relationship between physical activity, total energy expenditure, and the diet and food we consume. And I think it's important to point out that, in this example where we saw a much more physically active population burning the same amount of calories as a sedentary population, you may think, hey, how is that happening? Well, what research points to is our bodies actually become more efficient when we are in a rested state. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. There's all this hoopla and hype about having a fast metabolism and burning more and doing less. But in the long run, if you're looking at it from a longevity perspective, that's not necessarily what you want. The slower your metabolism, essentially the more efficient your body is operating. You're utilizing the energy you eat better instead of just burning it for burning its sake. By having a slower metabolism at rest, you're essentially conducting less chemical reactions within your body and saving yourself from things such as ROS, or reactive oxygen species, which, if you know anything about them, they could be pretty detrimental to one's health when they build up and they can't be neutralized by our buddies antioxidants. So being more energy efficient isn't necessarily a bad thing. The body is always in search of this homeostasis, and if you train hard and you train frequently, it's just gonna naturally balance itself out, where you might be burning a little bit more, and you'll definitely be burning more during that high intense physical activity, but when you're resting, you're more efficient at burning energy and your body's actually burning less. And that's a good thing. So even though this study shows almost the same amount of calories burned from an active population to a sedentary population, it's still advantageous to exercise because your body becomes more efficient. It becomes more finely tuned, and that helps you from a longevity perspective. I hope that makes sense. So, suggestions. What do you want to do? This study basically toys out that diet might be a big factor in this obesity epidemic. So I'd say let's kind of focus on, fine-tuning your diet. And the definition of fine-tuning really depends on where you're currently at. My philosophy on diet is everybody's different. Everyone has different needs from a nutritional standpoint, but you're always going to be in a good position if you plan to eat real whole foods the majority of the time. And what do I mean by real whole foods? Well, things that don't come in a box, things that don't have nutritional labels on it, because if it has a nutritional label on it, by definition, therefore, it is processed, highly processed, high sugar, high fat foods are what is plaguing society the most right now. So aim for real whole foods, fruits, veggies, grass-fed, organic meats, wild fish, real whole foods. It makes a difference. What you eat makes a difference. I've said it way too many times. Pay attention, it matters. Next, like I said before, even though it seems like exercising doesn't change your total energy expenditure, it does a lot of things at the cellular level. It increases the abundance of your mitochondria. It makes your body operate at a more efficient cellular level. It makes you feel fucking awesome. Endorphins, baby. It lowers stress. There are a ton of benefits to exercise that go way beyond total calories that are burnt. So you should do it. It is important. Movement is literally medicine. 2% of your day, 30 minutes will make all the difference. Trust me, you're gonna wanna do this. You're gonna wanna invest here. Other things that are going to move the needle in terms of optimizing your day-to-day functionality and longevity is sleep. Do it. Very important. Get your sleep. Don't skimp out on it. Sleep is literally the foundation of all things health. Blah, 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 blah. You hear me say it every single week. Invest in sleep. And next, you can look at potential protocols like time-restricted eating or intermittent fasting to tune your metabolism a little bit, to give your body a different look, to give your digestive system a break. Ton of benefits. We go through it in a lot of the fasting videos. You can check them out. Links below. Fasting 101 up here. That's what I got this week. I've been sitting on my butt a little too long for this video. I'm gonna go burn some energy the best way I know how. Just kidding.